Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all well and okay. Today we pay our respects to Mr. Joseph Merrick, a gentleman who almost sort of seems like a fictional character to a point, without sounding too, if that's not too disrespectful, if it sort of makes sense. Someone who was around a very long time ago. And has had books and films made and written about him, and there's obviously loads of information about him online, but it just, to a point, it doesn't seem real, maybe because it was so long ago. But he was very real, obviously, and he had a really traumatic time growing up, and trying to survive and trying to earn money and just trying to do the things that normal people do, I suppose. And maybe back in those days the support systems weren't there to look after someone like him who was in his position or condition. But fortunately he did cross paths with a doctor that took him under his wing and really looked out for him. So we're going to get a bit of info on Joseph Merrick. We're actually going to visit his final resting place. And some of you are probably thinking, that, what do you mean his final resting place? His skeleton is on display, or was on display, in a museum. So it used to be on display. I think now it's only available for viewing for like medical students and doctors and so on. But his actual remains were laid to rest in the City of London crematorium. So we visit the memorial plaque and the area where he was actually buried, which is pretty cool. We also look at the house that Dr. Treves lived in, where he took Joseph for dinner and he spent a bit of time. And we also look at the Whitechapel shop that was hired and he was put on display in, which is also pretty interesting. So as always guys, all the normal stuff. I hope you enjoy the video and like and subscribe, and we're going to get a bit more info on Mr. Joseph Merrick. John Merrick. Joseph Merrick was born on August the 5th, 1862 in Leicester, and for the first few years he actually seemed like a normal little boy. There was no issues, no problems as far as anyone was concerned. And then he got to about 4 or 5 years old, and he started to change physically. He started to develop abnormalities, and sort of parts of his leg and his arms started to swell quite drastically. And he had a very tough time. When he was 9 years old, his mother, Mary Jane Merrick, passed away, and his dad quickly remarried, and he left school at 13 and ended up working in a cigar factory. And he did that for a while, but as his physical condition worsened, his clumsiness became more apparent, and he found it more difficult to do the job that he was supposed to be doing. And it got to the point where he just couldn't do it anymore, and he really struggled. And they basically said to him, look, you can't do what you're supposed to do, you need to move on. And from there, with the help of his dad, he actually tried his hand at sales, door to door, which must have been really tough thinking about it. Even with a face mask and a hat, people just refused to engage with him. They just wouldn't open the door to him. And he also got a lot of abuse and harassment from local kids from the area. So from there, I think he got to about 17, and his dad and his stepmom basically said, look, we don't really want you here anymore, we want you to move on. You need to move out and just find your own way, which is like really harsh, I think. And he found himself living and working in the local union workhouses, which was really like a really tough place. Basically, you could stay there as long as you could carry out the manual work that was required. And I think he lived there for about 4 years, and then as his physicalities rather continued to worsen, it got to the point where he just couldn't carry out the manual work. And once again they sort of turned around and said to him, look, if you're here you need to work, if you can't work you need to go. So they literally kicked him out. So with very little options, I think he joined what was called back in those days a freak show, and he toured the Midlands as part of this show, and he ended up in London, and he was taken on by a gentleman called Tom Norman, who was like a bit of a businessman, a bit of a showman. So what Tom did, he hired a shop on Whitechapel Road, and he put Joseph on display, and he basically charged people to come in and look at him and talk to him. And the shop rather was actually opposite the London hospital. So he caught the attention of quite a lot of the medical students and the nurses and the doctors that would go past. Obviously they became curious about his condition and his physicalities and so on. And it was also there that he actually crossed paths for the first time with Dr Frederick Treves, who was like a young up-and-coming doctor. And Dr Treves sort of took him under his wing to a point. He sort of would take him over to the hospital, would treat him, keep an eye on his condition and try and look out for him. And from there Joseph actually went back on tour to Europe, and he was treated really poorly. I think he was robbed. They took any money he had, and his health declined quite badly. He was really unwell, and luckily for him he actually made it back to London through Liverpool Street Station, and with really not having a great deal of people we could reach out to, he reached out to Dr Treves, who took him in and treated him, and fortunately got his health to improve slightly. And I think they raised quite a lot of awareness with the public, and they raised some money, and they made arrangements for him to be able to live at the hospital. And I think after doing that, some tests and studies, they sort of realised that his lifespan wasn't that great, sadly. So as I said, they raised some money, they made arrangements for him to be able to live at the hospital, so he could receive care and treatment and get everything he needed from like the doctors and the nurses and the medical teams and staff that were there. And he actually lived there for 4 years, and he passed away in August 1890, and his official cause of death was asphyxiation. So John Merrick's memorial plaque is just up here on the right. And it is bed number 1771. In memoriam Joseph Merrick, 1862, 1890. And although his skeleton is at Whitechapel Hospital, his remains were actually brought here, and he was buried in this area, which over the years has been turned into a memorial garden.
Okay, assalamu alaikum.
So the house is just here on the right, and this is the place where Dr. Treves brought Joseph Merrick to his home, and it has got a blue plaque on it. So Frederick Treves, 1853, 1923, surgeon, lived here 1886, 1907. So after we took in Joseph Merrick, he wanted to see what a normal house looked like. So he brought him to his house for dinner. So John Merrick went into that house and spent a good few hours there. So this is the Kent and Lucas wing at St Bartholomew's Hospital, and it is where we're going to have a look at some belongings of Mr. Joseph Merrick. As always guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you could please like and subscribe and let me know your comments below. If you've watched documentaries about Joseph Merrick, if you've read books or watched the films that were made, let me know, and we will see you in the next video.